And welcome into the Paul Farrington Show, our Sunday instant reaction show. We finally get to do these. We've wanted to do them for a while. Paul joined alongside Robert, Ziggy Ziegler at the University of Virginia, and Zach Bloomquist, the best executive producer in the game, in his Jalen Waddle jersey, ready for tonight's matchup with the Patriots. We'll be going live after the game as well, talking about Zach's dominant performance for his Dolphins against Bill Belichick's defense. We're manifesting a win here for your team. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe to our channel. We finally got past 1,000, so now next goal, 2.5K. We'll see if we could keep growing this thing out. And before we get into the games, Ziggy has had something on his mind. He's been talking about it in group chats. He's been mentioning it on the show for a long time now. Big news in the world of cycling.
Today was a big day for football, but it was an even bigger day for American sports. Sepp Kuss became the first American to win a Grand Tour in 10 years. He won the Vuelta a España. He overcame teammates. He overcame rivals, put together an incredible ride. You know, if you count out some of the dopers or obvious dopers, it's really the last time we've had an American win since 1990. It's an exciting time for the sport. He's one of my favorite athletes in sports. So I brought out the good whiskey. I just wanted to give a toast. Sepp Kuss.
To Sepp Kuss.
Great riding.
We'll dedicate today's show to Sepp Kuss. And that was great keeping that about 20 seconds on cycling to make sure that we don't... You okay over there?
I'm good. Look. I don't do this very often.
All right, that's awesome. So we have a great show today. We'll be talking some winners and losers from today's games. A little NFC North lookabout with the Packers and Lions both losing. Big games. Huge for the Vikings to some degree. But we're going to start off with just an unbelievable game out in Arizona. The Giants, crazy comeback against the Cardinals. They were down 28-7 with only a few minutes left in the third quarter. They claw all the way back down, I believe at halftime it was 21-0, correct? Or 20-0?
Yeah, no, it was 21-0.
21-0 at halftime. It was the first time this win that the Giants overcame a halftime deficit of 20 or more points since they beat the Chicago Cardinals in October of 1949. The stats about this game are wild. I think the Giants, 6 quarters in without a point, the first time they've opened a season with that long of a scoring drought since 1934. And for somehow, some way, every Giants fan we know is texting us unspeakable things about how upset they are with this team. And by the end of the night, they're celebrating a win. They're 1-1, and the season stays alive. So, Ziggy, with so much emotions in this game for Giants fans, try and place yourself in their shoes. Are you more concerned about what you saw in that first half and what you saw against Dallas in the first game of the season? Or are you like, okay, you know what? Win's a win. Let's go. We got San Francisco.
Look, there are lots of reasons to be concerned. But if the Giants had lost this game, the season was probably over.
Yeah.
You look at their upcoming schedule. They're at 49ers versus Seahawks, at Dolphins, at Bills. Realistic chance of the momentum they were getting, they were starting 0-6, and you don't come back from 0-6. But instead, they win the game. Saquon gets hurt, which is what I'm worried about if I'm a Giants fan. It looked like it was an ankle injury. My guess is a high ankle sprain, like the one that bothered him a couple years back. Could linger a while, could cause a lot of problems. But you have to be happy with the win. And the fact is, I mean, things started to look a lot better in that second half.
So
Daniel Jones was running well. He was passing all right. You know, Darren Waller, that connection looked good. Jalen Hyatt, he made a couple big plays. Like, this offense was able to function. And given what we saw in the first 6 quarters, a functional offense is a lot more than you could expect.
Yeah, this Giants team, think about the first half. They had about 80 yards just getting dominated by what many people believe is the worst team in the NFL. And then to flip the script, second half, 358 yards compared to just 138 for the Cardinals. It was, huge for their season to turn it around like that. And that's what you need to do if you're the Giants. Against teams like the Cardinals, you're hoping to go back to the playoffs if you're New York. You need to be able to dominate teams like this because Josh Dobbs looked like he was Tom Brady in the first half. I had a couple friends over watching, big Giants fans, and they were like, what the hell's going on with Dobbs here? He looks unbelievable. And you need to be able to shut guys like that down, especially given that schedule you mentioned. 3 of the 4 games on the road with San Francisco, Miami, and the last one was
Bills.
The Bills on the road. Yeah. So it's a huge win for the Giants, as you said, to save their season. And yeah, for the first time in a while, you saw what you wanted to see regarding the hype at receiver. It wasn't like people were going crazy, but Jalen Hyatt, 2 huge catches in the second half. Darren Waller, a couple really big plays. It's all going to come down to what Saquon's injury is, and we'll find out more in the coming days. Probably by tomorrow we'll have a good idea. But without him, I'm really concerned with what this offense can accomplish. But while we can still stay positive here, you finally saw a glimpse of what you were hoping Daniel Jones and this offense could be in that second half.
Here's what you hope comes out of this game, even if Saquon's hurt. Here's what this team now knows. No matter how far in the hole we are, no matter how bad things are, if we work together and play smart football, we can come back and win. And that's not nothing, right? You see a lot of teams like down 20-0. It is very easy to give up.
Oh, yeah.
You read off all the numbers. Nobody comes back from stuff like that. It's been almost a century since the Giants had to start this bad in the NFL.
Except Kirk Cousins.
Yeah. Okay, sure. Except for, of course, but they don't have Kirk Cousins. They have Daniel Jones.
Yeah.
So just getting that established is worth something. And there will be times, there's no question, in the upcoming weeks when things will feel hopeless. What you hope is that the Giants can draw on this. Remember that even when things looked bad, they kept it together and played well.
Yep.
And hope this lets them take the haymaker that the 49ers are going to throw at them in a couple of days.
Oh, yeah. And it's so important, as you said, for them to know this quality team is in there somewhere. That when they're on their A game, they can be a dominant football team at times. Again, it's just the Cardinals. We know that. But it's important to see that in the second half.
So winning in the NFL is hard. It doesn't matter if you're against the alleged worst team in the NFL. The Cardinals have some good players. It's hard.
All right, let's do a couple winners and losers here. Ziggy and I will each give one winner and one loser from the weekend. I'll start off. I'm going to say every AFC North team, other than the Cincinnati Bengals, is a winner today. Because you're seeing the Bengals team, who is the favorite, coming out to a really sluggish start right now. And when you see that, if you're a Steeler fan, Raven fan, or Browns fan, I know that they're all very good football teams and came into this season hoping to win the AFC North. But you're looking at the Bengals saying, wow, all right, they got some things to figure out. Like, the door is open against Joe Burrow. And how often when you're going against a top 3 quarterback in the NFL is that door open for you to take advantage? Bengals are sitting at 0-2. And my big concerns for them, Ziggy, I know you have some concerns with Burrow, but I'm watching them get absolutely bullied by both the Browns and the Ravens, like both division games. And the offense didn't score a touchdown until the end of the third quarter of game 2. And on offense, listen to these numbers here. They allowed 206 rushing yards to the Browns and 178 against the Ravens. That's one side of the line. On the other one, they only are running for about 70 yards a game. So the run game has been, they are getting bullied on the lines, and it's been a complete disaster. Have you noticed that as well?
Oh, the run game's bad, and you'd hope that Joe Burrow and the passing game can make up for it. But they haven't been able to do that either, right? Jamar Chase hasn't broken 40 yards in either game. Joe Burrow has made a lot of really questionable plays. That interception he threw near the end zone today was just a straight-up bad play.
Game-changing type of interception.
And Joe Burrow historically has not been the kind of guy to make those kinds of huge blunders that make you sit back and wonder what the heck he was thinking. But he's made those kinds of mistakes against the Ravens. He looked terrible against the Browns. They need Joe Burrow to turn into that low negative quarterback, the guy who very rarely makes bad plays, because he's been the one carrying them this whole time. If he can't get it done, their playoff hopes are going to evaporate.
Oh, for sure. I'm watching the Bengals, and it's not crazy panic time yet, but after last week and now this week, I think you start to get a little concerned if you're a fan, because depending on how the Browns look against the Steelers tomorrow night, right now, Cincinnati is probably the third best team in the division. And it really might not even be that close at the moment right now. Real quick, from a Ravens standpoint, I thought this was 100% a statement win from Baltimore. Lamar Jackson got the big contract, and he looked every bit the star player that Baltimore wants him to be, with his arm, with his legs. How good does he look now that he finally has some weapons in this Todd Monken offense? OBJ, Zay Flowers has been so impressive. The most impressive rookie receiver so far to me, despite a couple big games for Jordan Addison. I love what I'm seeing from Baltimore. The defense played great as well. And I know we picked them to win the division in our offseason shows. Right now, I feel pretty good about that.
I certainly do too. Of course, I picked the Browns to win, but we can set that
I'm sorry.
aside.
I think Jack did.
Yeah, look, here's the thing about the Ravens that I've actually really enjoyed is they've moved away from designed run carries for Lamar Jackson. And these are just, when you've got a functional offense, you don't want to run those kinds of plays unless you have to. Why? Because running the ball is always worse than passing, just in general. And you're putting Lamar Jackson out there to get lit up by defenders that want nothing more than ended Lamar Jackson season on their resume, right? So I think they ran 4 designed carries this game. But what if that's opened up, moving away from design carries, has let Lamar be a really active scrambler, right? This doesn't mean Lamar Jackson's not getting out there. It's that it's pass first, and then if the passing game's not open, he can punish them then. They're still running really well, right? They had 25 non-Jackson runs for 125 yards. Like, this team's offense is just looking really good. It's not perfect. There's still some kinks to recover, but Jackson's got weapons. The Monken offense looks good. And the defense is going to get it done.
There's more balance to this Ravens offense than I've seen in a long time because we know their identity is ground and pound, and they're really good at that. They're one of the best in the league. But now when you add in 24 for 33 today, 237 yards and 2 touchdowns for Lamar, when you add in those playmakers on the outside, all of a sudden you have a team that can attack you in multiple ways, which really just hasn't been the case in the past. They've had some – Hollywood Brown was there. They had players. But you never had this much explosion in the Baltimore offense. And, man, it's hard not to look at them right now as a big time contender for the AFC.
And let's not forget, they did this with multiple key players out, right? Marcus Williams was out, though admittedly his replacement stepped up big time. Ronnie Stanley was out. Tyler Linderbaum was out. There's a little bit, Odell Beckham Jr. had to leave just before the end of the game with an ankle injury, which they don't think is going to be too bad. But the Ravens are getting this done shorthanded.
Yeah, great win for Baltimore. You go 2 games up on the Bengals, and we'll see what happens tomorrow night in the division. Who is your winner of the day?
For me, my winner, it can't be anyone other than the Cowboys offense. Now, look, I saw some people during the game complaining about the Cowboys offense and how they were performing, which was crazy enough. But people forget who they were playing, namely the Jets defense. Right, this Jets defense, they forced 4 turnovers out of Josh Allen last week. They got 0 out of Dak Prescott. The Cowboys were able to get a functional run game. It wasn't perfect, but they were able to move the ball on the ground. They're able to put up 30 points on this Jets defense that, unless you're talking to the Cowboys, is probably the best in the league. They were consistently able to move the ball and score in a big game at the highest level against an elite defense. They converted 63% of their third downs. Josh Allen converted 38%. It is exciting to see the Cowboys offense firing at this high cylinder. And if you were worried about Prescott's turnover woes from last season coming back, you can put that aside now. He was good.
Dak looked great today. 31 for 38, 255 yards, 2 touchdowns. CeeDee Lamb, 11 catches for 143 yards. Was just a man amongst boys out there. And this Jets secondary, I want to mention this. We live in New Jersey here, Zach and I do. And there was a lot of talk on sports radio all week. Jets fans calling in. And I understand you're trying to stay optimistic, but a lot of them were just taking the approach of, we can 100% win with Zach Wilson. He just has to be okay, and this defense can get the job done. Dak Prescott and the Cowboys offense went in there, and they did push around this Jets defense. And what was the final score out there?
30-10.
Yeah, 30-10. 30 points on what many people believe could be the best defense in the league, especially after what we saw them do to the Buffalo Bills, like you mentioned. Just a great performance from Dak and Dallas. The Jets, real quick, because then we could move on to the losers. 12 for 27, 170 yards, 1 touchdown, 3 picks for Zach Wilson. They have to move on. They have to. I know that Saleh says he's the guy. I know fans are trying to believe, but the team is talented, and they just can't move the ball.
That's not the scary number, Paul. If you think those were bad, here are the scary numbers. Breece Hall, 4 carries for 9 yards. Michael Carter, 2 carries, 8 yards. Dalvin Cook, 4 carries, 7 yards. That's not yards per carry. That's total yards.
Oh, beyond that, Ziggy, Garrett Wilson had two catches.
Admittedly, it's for 83 yards and a touchdown.
No, I know, but he had the big touchdown. But other than that, Garrett Wilson, he has to touch the ball more. Like I know it's hard for Wilson to get it because he's not a great thrower, but still, it's losing Rodgers takes this team from a Super Bowl contender to probably a non-playoff team. And it's crazy given how talented the rest of the team is. But that they got to go out and make a move. They were just dominated. Time of possession, 42-17. 42-18. Just a absolutely dominant game from Dallas.
Reporting's coming out saying that in the Jets locker room, there's a lot of support for Zach Wilson. The offense guys are sort of behind him. I think the offensive guys might be supporting him because there's nothing else they can do. But I simply do not believe that if the defense didn't have a great day today, but it's not like the offense put them in a great position. And sure enough, they forced the Cowboys to kick 5 field goals, which isn't nothing. If things keep playing out like this, you are going to have a war in the Jets locker room between the offense and defense. So get somebody else.
You have to.
Like Breece Hall comes out in a press conference and says he thinks that Zach Wilson played pretty well and it's everyone else should have supported him more. No, we know what happened. We watched the game. Don't lie to us.
QB rating was 38.1. And again, we don't like to harp on people on the show too much because at the end of the day, you got to remember they're all regular dudes playing football. But this Jets team is so talented that if Wilson goes out there next week and struggles again, it's just for the sake of the team, you gotta find someone else until he's ready.
And they don't have a lot of time, right? They're playing versus the Patriots next week. And we know Bill Belichick is going to make Zach Wilson look like a baby out there. It's going to be tough. Then they host the Chiefs. Then they play at the Broncos. And then they host the Eagles. They don't have time to figure this out. If they lose those games, they're out of playoff contention. They need somebody new now.
All right, let's quickly run through these losers here. I have Justin Fields and the Bears as a big loser of the day. The offseason was filled with hype for Chicago. And I'm looking in comment sections on YouTube videos, and someone says, a whole season of hope gone in 2 games. The Chicago Bears haven't won a football game in 11 months, Ziggy. They haven't won a football game in almost a full year now. And it's just, you're seeing the same things from Justin Fields. He's unbelievably talented with his legs, but the progression that everyone wanted to see, all Bears fans were hoping for, even with the new weapons, and DJ Moore finally had a good game with 6 receptions for 104 yards. He's not making progress right now. He's not that much different than he was last year at all. And that's why if I were a Bears fan, I'm panicking. My panic level is up there in around an 8. I just, at some point, how much more time does Justin Fields have before the clock really starts ticking on whether or not he can be the future of the Bears? Right now, it's a little too soon, but they're at the Chiefs next week. Then they host the Broncos. They're at the Commanders, and they have the Vikings. Those are winnable games, but if you lose those, if you go 1-3, and all of a sudden you're 1-5 to start the season again, I don't know when talk starts to pick up about it, whether or not you got to look another way soon.
You know, I said during the offseason, I thought the plus EV move was for the Bears to stay at number 1 and take the quarterback they liked. I'm not trying to run a victory lap here, but
too early.
The Bears might be looking for a quarterback this offseason. Now, it's not necessarily a good thing, right? Fields took 6 sacks. Baker Mayfield stayed upright the entire game. This is surely a large part of why things played out that way. But it wasn't the offensive line that made Justin Fields throw a pick 6 down 3 points with 2 minutes left in the game, right? Fields got his opportunity. You're down 3. There's 2 minutes, 20-ish seconds left. Yep. You've got the ball. You're starting a drive, and you get to take the team down. And instead, he made the worst mistake you can make. Fields isn't throwing the ball away when he needs to. He only added 3 yards on the ground this game. It's worrying progression, and the offensive line will not be there to help him. So I don't know what the future holds, but it can't be good. And you know what? They go to Arrowhead next week.
Yeah, that's a loss.
All right, guys.
That's a loss. The Shaq Barrett interception.
Chris Jones is gonna.
That Shaq Barrett interception was unbelievable, but you're completely right. Both lines are a problem for Chicago. They can't keep Fields safe. And then on top of that, defensive line, 1 sack in 2 games. They have no pressure on anyone.
You wonder if Justin Fields is getting these bad habits because during practice, he plays the Bears offensive line and has 15 seconds to make a pass. Yeah. No, I mean, the biggest concern I have, honestly, is that the Bears offensive coaching staff just doesn't seem to recognize where they are, right? They want to be the kind of team that can run clever screens and give Justin Fields a lot of time to make reads and incredible passes. And they just don't have that. Every single play looks like a screen for the Bears because the offensive line isn't blocking anyone either way.
That's awesome. And before your loser, just a quick shout out to Tampa Bay, who's looking really good to start the year. Baker Mayfield.
No, they're not.
No, Baker Mayfield. Since the end of the first half against the Vikings, Tampa's been pretty good. Baker Mayfield's looking way better than people thought. We'll see. We'll see coming up because that Chicago and Vikings defense aren't very good.
No.
But
I'm not super excited about the Bucs, but if Baker Mayfield plays average-ish, they can win the division.
Yeah, you got to tip your cap. They look decent right now. A lot better than people expected. So who do you have? The big loser of the weekend for Robert Ziggy Ziegler.
For me, I think the big loser has to be the Los Angeles Chargers. It's not because they suffered a loss that was as bad as anyone else. The problem is that this team went in with big expectations this year. They were hoping to make the playoffs. They were trying to make a really
like last year, Super Bowl expectations.
Just like last year. In the last 2 weeks, we've seen the Chargers be unable to take on basic opponents. They can't stretch the field. Justin Herbert keeps throwing short passes because there's nothing available for him. He has to give the ball to Josh Palmer, who's a black hole, right? 0 catches on 5 targets. Keenan Allen's doing his best, but there's no one to stretch the field. The new play calling's not working. They're 0-2. And it's tough to overcome a 0-2 start and make the playoffs when you're in a tough division in a tough conference. It looks like it might just be more of the same from them.
You're lucky that Zach is so tuned in to the start of this Sunday night football game, which is just kicking off for us right now, that he missed you saying basic opponents, talking about his Miami Dolphins, which we know he would disagree with. But you're right. The Chargers, I don't think they've looked that bad. But what has been a problem for them for multiple years now? It's closing out games, winning the tight ones. And against Miami, they failed to do that. Herbert had a chance to win it. Against the Titans, Herbert had another chance to win it today. Couldn't get the job done. You're 0-2. Yeah, and that division with Kansas City, even though they're just 1-1 to start the season, you got to be able to, like, every game is important, especially with this AFC wildcard race that we're going to see, assuming that the Chargers don't win the AFC West, which probably too early to assume, but still. Yeah, this is a big time loss for them. Despite Keenan Allen, great day for my fantasy team, but yeah, Chargers fans just have a roller coaster. They should have won this game today. They needed to.
It looks like the Chargers are going to need Austin Eckler to put up like 180 yards if they want to win a game. Problem, it's not that the Chargers are good at running. It's that the Dolphins' run defense wasn't very good because the Titans shut that down. Mm-hmm. I get that the Titans have a good run defense, but still, the Chargers have to.
Big win for Tennessee.
Oh, it was a great win for them. They're in a winnable division. Yeah. They have to be happy the Jaguars lost.
Hey, they're my division champ in the AFC South.
It's disappointing that the Chargers still can't get it done with Herbert playing as well as he is.
Yep.
And I just can't see it changing. And that's, boy, if this team misses the playoffs, how sad are Chargers fans going to be?
Well, another year. Well, they might be happy that Staley's gone because he will immediately be gone if they don't make the playoffs. All right, let's wrap up today's show with just a couple quick NFC North games here because Ziggy and I, big Vikings fans, we have our eyes on these Packers, Lions, Bears games throughout every week of the season. Packers, Falcons, let's start. And this is the headline that I'm feeling for Packers fans. Unfortunately, actually, this is coming from me. Unfortunately, there is no need to panic just yet. You collapsed today. You straight up collapsed against the Falcons team that you should be able to put away. But when they're up 24-12 going into the fourth quarter, I'm imagining Green Bay is going to be able to win most of these games. It was really just a great performance from Atlanta down the stretch. They gained 166 yards on 25 plays in the fourth quarter. Touchdown, 2 field goals there. Packers got the ball 3 times, and I believe 11 yards on 10 plays, 2 3-and-outs and a 4-and-out. Which that is not extremely concerning, but I guess more so disappointing in this case. I thought Jordan Love looked okay throughout the day. He had some more throws that are, he looks impressive throwing the football. I'll give him credit. It's just one of those days where, all of a sudden they couldn't figure it out in the fourth. Atlanta got hot. It really disappointing though to see those 11 yards, 10 plays fourth quarter. I was happy to see it. I was thrilled to see it. But this Packers team was also playing without Christian Watson. David Bakhtiari was out. Elton Jenkins left in the first half. Aaron Jones didn't play. An injured Packers team, but it feels like one slipped away here.
Yeah, I mean, Jordan Love, I think he struggled today.
He more so than we've seen in his regular season games before.
Yeah, really the difference between these teams was what happened on fourth down. Third down, neither team did particularly well, but fourth down, the Falcons, were 3 for 4 on fourth down. The Packers, meanwhile, had Jordan Love mess up a QB sneak.
Yeah, the miscommunication.
It's not to say it's like, yeah, there were a few miscommunications. There were a few mistaken Matt LaFleur plays. Like, all that sort of happened. And I like that Jordan Love took some responsibility. But it just wasn't a good game for either quarterbacks. Mm-hmm. Frankly, for neither of these teams would I be super excited. I think actually the quarterbacks look kind of the same. Neither of them were great throwing the ball. They both had some lucky bailouts on things like underthrown DPI, or like Ridder had that underthrown Matt Collins play.
Yep.
But they were able to rush, make things up, sort of make plays when they needed to. Like, it wasn't very exciting. I'm not sure either of these guys are all that good. But, they played a game. The Falcons won. Good for them.
Yeah, and Atlanta, they can push people around. And Bijan Robinson, he was impressive today. He didn't have any crazy highlight, but 19 carries, 124 yards, 48 receiving yards. I mean, a couple of the cuts he makes, he's just so quick. But you're right. The one thing about Atlanta is they'll be able to run on most teams. They just have a great rushing attack. But when it comes down to it, I don't expect them to be able to contend really at all with the big dogs in the NFC, or even like the Seahawks and the Lions should be able to handle Atlanta most weeks, because you're talking about Desmond Ridder, who unfortunately I don't trust him at all as a quarterback. He had a couple big throws today, but I don't trust him in big moments yet. He's going to have to earn that, at least from me. So he should have been intercepted multiple times today. There were a lot of throws that he got very lucky to get away with. But again, he's good enough where this Atlanta team should be able to contend for the NFC South. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, but at a certain point, you have to ask, what's the end game here? If the rushing game can stay as good as it has, which is nowhere near a guarantee, right? The Falcons have had a really good rushing game, but that's not always sticky. If that can stay well, they might be able to contend for the division. But at a certain point, you got to ask yourself, so what? Right? I'm not trying to poop on Falcons fans here, but at a certain point, this team's ceiling is hard capped by the fact that they have a really bad quarterback. You just can't win a lot of football games with a really bad quarterback. And if you somehow manage to win a lot of football games, you're not going on a playoff run.
And Atlanta fans, they're gonna say to this, they're gonna be, hey, you know what? 2-0 is 2-0. Like, we take that, we move on. And I'll say, sure, 100% great win today. Finally, for the first time in what feels like forever, Atlanta was on the other side of one of these big time comebacks. It was awesome. The stadium was rocking. I'm just holding back a little bit on how optimistic I am for their future of this season. But right now in Atlanta, I love watching them run the football. They can pound the rock. And Bijan Robinson, I liked the pick. I know a lot of people didn't. He looks awesome. So you have a lot of reasons to be excited. Drake London had some big catches today. It's a good offense there. Let's just see. Can we find a way to get Desmond Ridder to elevate his game a little bit? Can that happen? Because if it does, yeah, doors open in the NFC to make some noise. You got to get there, though. Let's wrap up here with the Seahawks and the Lions. Just a really, really good football game. Two good teams that are going to compete for likely wild card spots. The Lions, of course, the NFC North. Seattle, though, we'll start with them. Just a massive, massive rebound game for Geno Smith, who looked horrible against the Rams. Listen, I have him on my fantasy team. I didn't play him this week, but last week I had him going. Dreadful start. And a lot of people were saying, I think we even mentioned on this show, we were like, he looked like the second half Geno from last year, which was a guy who regressed a lot and was not as fortunate as he was in the first half when he was lighting up the league. But today, man, 32 for 41, 328 yards, 2 touchdowns. And that was with an offensive line that was missing both starting tackles, who performed very well against the Lions. Just a great day for Geno Smith. And Seahawks fans should be excited, because now it feels like a big sigh of relief. Like, okay, we got our first win. Geno looked good. Like, we don't have to panic. If Geno came out and looked flat, all of a sudden now people in Seattle would have gotten nervous. But big sigh of relief.
Yeah. Both these quarterbacks, I think they actually played kind of the same game. which is a good thing, right? They were both very efficient.
Yep.
They both made every pass that was asked of them and then some, right? They were well above average on efficiency. The game just came down to two huge mistakes for the Lions, right? Jared Goff threw that bad pick six, his first interception in almost 400 pass attempts. And then David Montgomery had that really bad fumble. If you take those two plays out of it, these teams played almost identical. They were both really efficient. Both quarterbacks moved the ball. Both teams had a pretty solid run game. But that fumble was so bad. That pick six was so bad. But both these teams, I think, have a cause for optimism, right? They're both sort of borderline NFC contenders. They both showed that when things go well, they can play in a shootout, and just the first team to make a mistake loses. Unfortunately, today, that was the Lions, but it just as easily could have gone the other way. A lot to be optimistic about for both teams.
Oh, 100%. And Detroit, too, got a little banged up during this game. C.J. Gardner-Johnson, Amon-Ra, David Montgomery left. Like, hopefully nothing serious. A couple of those guys did come back and play. But Detroit was banged up throughout this as well as Seattle was with the offensive line. One thing that's concerning me about the Lions a little bit is we know the offense is going to be firing on all cylinders. As long as they stay healthy, Jared Goff looks really good. But defensively, I'm a little concerned because the defensive line right now, they only sacked Geno once today with all the backups in. No sacks versus Mahomes. We understand he's a scrambler. He's one of the best in the league at avoiding sacks. But they haven't generated much pressure. And then on top of that, they just got absolutely torched today by the Seahawks. And they probably would have against the Chiefs if anyone on the team could catch the ball in the opener on Thursday Night Football. So I'm a little concerned about the Lions. I know they have a revamped defense. We can't really compare them too much to last year's because there are so many new faces. But should Lions fans be a little concerned about the defense to start the year?
I think you should be a little concerned. This is just a pretty poor defensive performance all around, right? The linebackers struggled to cover. The secondary had some really, really costly interference calls. The defensive line, as you said, wasn't able to get much pressure. They were able to do good against the run game, right? Kenneth Walker had a really good carry to start the game, and otherwise, I think he only got like 30 yards after that. Mm-hmm. He got a few touchdowns, but when you're like ramming it in the inside of Kenneth Walker from the one, you'll be okay.
Pause.
Look, I wish they would have gotten more sacks. I wish they would have gotten more pressures. I wish the linebackers could cover better. I wish the cornerbacks could avoid getting as many penalties. But it wasn't a meltdown.
No.
This wasn't bad enough to keep them out of the game. And all the Lions really need is the defense to play marginally better, make one or two more plays. And of course, the Lions fans are going to be talking about this. There was a really bad no holding call to end the game in overtime.
I was shouting it out.
Yeah, no, it was. So it's not as though like you put these numbers in, but it's not as though in the big moments players couldn't come close.
Yep. Yeah.
I don't think it's a little worrying. I would have liked to see them do a little bit more, but they've got games against the Falcons, Packers, Panthers, and Buccaneers coming up next. They have some time to fine tune things. I'm not super worried about the defense.
Okay. Yeah, completely fair. They had a couple calls that didn't go their way, a couple of those big turnovers. And last thing we'll wrap up with, Dan Campbell. We love him on this show. I'm a big Dan Campbell fan. I think he has a great approach. He's changing a team who are losers. The team has been losers forever. And Dan Campbell's come in, and it kind of feels cool to be a Lions fan for the first time in a long time. At least from the Lions fans that I've talked to, they're enjoying football. And that very rarely happens in Detroit. By now, you're 0-2, and you're like, all right, come on, Caleb Williams, let's beat out the Texans for this pick. And for as much fun as Dan Campbell has coaching, as risky as he is, sometimes it does come back to bite him today. Two big fourth downs you could look back on. There was a 4th and 4 from the Seattle 31-yard line. Detroit elected to go for it earlier in the game. No good. They could have kicked the field goal there. Later on in the game, perhaps a bigger one, 4th and 3 from their own 45-yard line. Pin Seattle deep. They elect to go for it. They don't get it. Seattle gets the ball back and winds up taking the lead 24-21 on that drive, because they were in great field position. So there's another thing with the Lions throughout the season that I bet will be a theme. Dan Campbell takes risks, and sometimes it pays off. I'm thinking about the Packer game last year, Week 18. Think about the Chiefs game earlier this year, or in Week 1. They go for it on 4th down really early in the game, backed up, and they get it. But then later in the game, they go for 4th down and don't, and all of a sudden the Chiefs have the ball with a chance to win the game. Like, that's going to be a theme. It's going to be stressful for Lions fans. You just have to remember to pay attention to that, because you have You have a coach with pretty big guts.
But I will say, so there's two things. One is Dan Campbell is the prince that was promised. He's sort of the guy to unify the analytics and the like football guts guys. Because he's obviously, when he comes out and talks about biting kneecaps, he's like one of those gutsy football guys.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
You can tell he goes for it when he should and he doesn't when he shouldn't. He's clearly listening to the numbers guy. Look, here's the thing that people, I think, sort of make mistakes on, is they overreact to aggressive plays failing and underreact to non-aggressive plays failing.
Yep.
Right? Nobody's talking about the Chargers punting it at 4th and 1 on the opponent's 44. Like just an obviously bad, cowardly decision. No one's talking about that as part of why they lost, but everyone wants to come out and talk about Campbell's missed 4th down conversions. Look, the edge you get for going on 4th down is a couple percentage. It's a couple win points. It's not the sort of thing that's going to dramatically change things. And indeed, even if you make the good decisions, you should expect it to not work out a lot of the time. But he's making the right calls. You can run the numbers. It's the case. I have no problems of what he's doing.
Fair. All right. Well, with that, we will wrap up today's Week 2 reaction show. We'll be back following the Sunday Night Football game. Dolphins-Patriots. We will be live on YouTube. Can't wait to see it. Or can't wait to do it. And hopefully we see a bunch of you there. Just an absolutely great Week 2 of the NFL.
One last thing before we go, Paul. So, I'm in a survivor pool this week. And this week I picked the Giants to win.
I can't.
And I got incredibly lucky. I know. Yeah, I just got a text from a friend who's a Giants fan. Because, I was texting him. He's been driving all day, so he didn't get the chance to watch the game. He tells me there's room on the Giants bandwagon if I love weekly emotional roller coasters.
Oh, my gosh.
I'll tell you, Paul.
This guy's no idea, man.
I'll tell you this. The Giants have emotional roller coasters, but they won the game. Maybe I should switch and become
it's just enough of that. You know what? You want to talk about emotional roller coasters? I'll tell him this. Say yeah, sure was an emotional roller coaster getting your ass kicked week 1, 40-0. The crazy roller coaster there. The ups and the downs of that game were wild. No, Ziggy, to be fair, yeah, they did win the game. But come on, last year we had the 11-0 one-score games. Like every once in a while, we never win the big one, the Vikings. But we'll give you a few wins here and there.
I'm just messing around. Let's get out of here.
That's awesome though. It's fun to see. It's fun to see just how every fan base is like, you don't want to be us, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, you got to be us. We have so much fun. It's just a couple bounces here or there could make or break an entire outlook on the team. So we will be back later tonight. Can't wait to see you. For Ziggy, Paul, Zach, peace.